PR Murry, and PR Murry, apart from being a poet, is a wonderful artist who exhibits regularly in London and elsewhere. I've worked with Pete for many years now, and he is also co-founder of Dodo Modern Poets, and so really Pete is here and he's going to read. So over to PR Murry.
Thank you. The poems I'm going to do in the first half are partly autobiographical and partly sartorial, as you'll hear later on. The first one is about an interview I had about 2 weeks ago. It's for something called a personal independence payment, which is a payment you can maybe get if you're disabled, but you have to be assessed to get it, and this is what the process is like. A nice nurse knocked on my front door, so I showed her up the stairs to my first floor flat. I asked her to observe the difficulty that I have in ascending to my abode, for it is an overweight and arthritic old man who writes this ode, and coughs as he does so, remembering 40 years of heavy smoking plus decades more of breathing polluted city air. So I pant up the steps and sit wheezing in my chair as the nice nurse questions me. She asks if I can wipe my own arse, and how frequently I pee, and how I catch the bus or train, and how many pills I take, and when I walk with my walking stick, what progress do I make? At the end of the interview, she explains that in a month or so, a verdict on my payment will be made. It could be cut, it could be raised, it could even be doubled. Then she holds up a bucket and says, or just kick this now and save the government some money. I hasten to add that the nice nurse didn't really say that, but that's what it's all about, I fear. Okay, now as I said in there, part of the reason I have breathing problems is because I've been breathing polluted air in London most of my life, and this poem's about that. Once a river ran like a cord of grey churning muscle through a valley and a city, current rolling, pulsing and twisting muddy waters to the sea and back again at the same time, running with and against the tide. Like the city, it never ceased. On cold winter nights, it sweated mist, but if the night was still, the mist could not rise. Every house in the city burnt a coal fire. Nearly every adult who lived there smoked. And then there was the time when all the cars and buses and lorries smoked too. Smog was born, and the mist and smog embraced each other in a sleeping yellow embrace, and lay down like satisfied lovers above the city, smothering breath and life in a poisonous blanket. So every still night when the smog lay down, hundreds died beneath. Give us clean air, the people cried. Stop the coal fires, clean the car exhausts, stop smoking, cut carbon monoxide. And then the old smog, made illegal, died, and fewer people did, but death was just resting for a decade or two. It smiled and said, I will find a way to return and choke the life from your lungs and heads. I will make a finer blanket now than the smog of old. And when the sun is bright and the air is still, I'll weave a cloth of car fumes and light and lay it over the Thames Valley, so that they'll gasp for breath and cough in vain again and again, just like they did when my smog was thick. My clear killing veil will hang invisible above the city, so they'll still die for me as the river rolls on and passes the poison people by. Okay, another theme in my life. I'm glad to say it wasn't actual bombs, but I just realised recently that all my life I've been hearing anecdotes about bombs of various kinds. Stories about bombs have punctuated my life. Born when the welfare state was also a baby, I heard about my dad fire watching on the roof of an art school in Blitz, London, and composing an oil painting whilst he was up there. I heard about the shrapnel embedded in an aunt's leg, and every so often a radio announcer might report unexploded ordnance found buried on a building site. One day, Cuba was in the news. Nikita Khrushchev banged his shoe on the desk at the UN. That was the first time I saw my father scared. Made to be a schoolboy cadet, the worst bomb I heard was a thunder flash. Just oversized fireworks thrown about by boys in pretend wars, whilst half a world away, youths threw real grenades at each other in Vietnam. But London learned the hard way that old wounds don't always heal, as propaganda of the deed reminded us of an unjustly held colony kept down by British Army boots across a narrow sea. A bandstand blew up, a cast iron waste bin disintegrated in a high street, killing a child, and sudden night blasts outside territorial barracks. And then, after a general election, I heard a massive dull thud roll up from the Thames Valley to my suburban hilltop, as a debt was paid in the city. Not content with that, the Fenians blew me out of bed as well, where I lay drunk, trying to forget the start of 4 more Tory years. As 3/4 of a mile away, a 4-lane flyover was lifted off its foundations by an exploding van. A truce came to London until jihad began. Old wounds don't always heal. Crusades and colonialism festered, and oil was not a balm for those treacherous treaties, Sykes-Picot and Balfour, and all the other dodgy dealings, spooking and conniving to keep those motors running. But the truth could be that it doesn't worry me more than the chance of dying in a traffic accident. Stupidity seems to breed stupidity. Just today, the world's prize-winning stupidest man addressed the UN to threaten a nation with total destruction. I wish, because it's all I can do, that he'd taken off his shoe like Nikita Khrushchev did, but then beat himself with it over his own blonde head. Okay. This is about my cousin Mary. Cousin Mary strides along the seafront at Seaford, walking into the salt wind with her red hair streaming behind her. She's always dreaming, so she's dreaming again, of her Ireland of ancestors and the country of her heart, which is Spain. She walks along the seawall past the Martello Tower and the beach huts. She shouts, and then explains, when we ask her why, that this was the Spanish muleteer's cry. Mary ate some mammoth once, unfrozen from Siberian ice, then cooked and sliced at a Royal Geographical Society banquet. Perhaps the flesh of the prehistoric pachyderm lets her access spatial and temporal dimensions where others cannot be. So here is Cousin Mary in a quiet English seaside town, calling out to other places and times. There she is, we see her there, but Cousin Mary is anywhere and everywhere. Okay, so I'm doing the sartorial bit just to finish off with. I'll start at the bottom with the shoe. Okay, and where is the shoe? Well, the shoe is on your feet, I hope. But anyway, the shoe. Often underrated, sometimes understated, sometimes squished into dog poo, the interface of foot and planet is the domain of the shoe. Or more truly, that's the place of all footwear. It could be boot, sandal or clog that's located down there. And though I've no wish to be rude, I do have to tell you that feet can be nude, exposed to the elements, to sharp thorns, to cruel broken glass, or to the bite and sting of beasts who lurk in the grass. But footwear can show status, or betray poverty, be high or low-heeled, be hidden or be seen, be dreamt about by fetishists, or marched in by fascists, But if you study history, you will see that footwear's destiny is not to shield feet or ornately display them, nor to keep them camouflaged, but to break the machine like hurled workers' clogs. The true purpose of the shoe is sabotage. And okay, I like to finish with my trousers. Well, I don't really mean that actually. Well, in some ways I do, as this poem will explain. I want telepathic and telekinetic trousers now. I want truths that can think. I want strides that don't shrink away from the intellectual effort of obeying my unspoken commands, and that climb up my legs smoothly and coolly without a word from my mouth or a tug from my hands. I want leg wear that's always there when I want it and never there when I don't. As a youth, I never thought of trousers in terms of on and off, but age and arthritis have changed the nature of the leg-cladding game. Getting dressed and undressed is now a ruthless 15-round wrestling match as I curse and swear and sometimes tear at those obstinate tubes of cloth. My feet get stuck inside them, my knees go crick and crack, and I clutch at the wall in case I fall like a tortoise onto my back. But tortoises don't wear trousers. They have more sense than aged old apes. They go around nude as perhaps I should, or wear a skirt or a kilt or a cape, instead of fighting my trousers in a daily attritional war, which I can't win and neither can they, till we both exist no more. I'll be cremated in my trousers. Together, flesh, bone and cloth will burn, until trousers and I can both rest in peace in a tasteful funerary urn.